Hey everyone, welcome to Draw Sessions. Bobby here. So, last week we had a lot of fun designing a creature based on three animals from Earth. So, this week I asked some participants to list off some animals that they would want me to combine into one horrific, weird, alien looking creature. We had some good suggestions. So, Chris had a good suggestion with a bear, a salamander, and a hummingbird. However, I saw one a little weirder and crazier. I'm going to go with Lex's. And Lex had a giraffe, a piranha, and a stag beetle. Now, me, I'm partial to insects, and anything dealing with sharp teeth and insects and mixed with a mammal. It's kind of a crazy combo. So we're going to jump right into it. All right. So as we're looking at these animals on the left, we have a giraffe, we have a piranha, and then we have a stag beetle. You don't want to get bitten by a stag beetle, and definitely not a piranha. So, how are we going to incorporate that into our creature? What will the mouth look like? But first, we need to figure out the body. So, when I look at the primary, secondary, and tertiary shapes, so you got your primary, secondary, and tertiary. It always helps to write this down. And why is that? It's because you hold yourself accountable for one, even if you're doing something like colors or shapes. That helps you almost fact check your own work. So when we're looking at this, I'm looking at the giraffe and I said, you know what? It's probably the biggest. Let's have this be a land dwelling creature that also looks like a piranha and also looks like a stag beetle. Let's do it. So the primary shape will be the giraffe. So let's do this cool little side view here. Now, if you remember in my last video, I explained that it doesn't really matter how detailed something is at first. You just want the shape in there. And those of you that are watching this and you have a sketchbook and you don't have Photoshop, you can do this traditionally too. I'm a traditionalist at heart. I love pencil to paper. Doing it digitally this time just because I can record directly on the screen and have that ready for you. So we have kind of an odd shape here. Now, any sketch layer that you want in Photoshop, it's better to list it over here in your layers. Those of you that are familiar with Photoshop, bear with me. So I'm going to name it Sketch. There we go. All right, so we have the primary shape. And if you're wondering what shape I'm actually taking from the giraffe over here on the left, it is this one. Okay, so we have the hunchback, the trapezius muscles, then we have the hip, and then we have that really cool protruding shoulder area, followed by the round stomach. And because this is our creature, we have our own little creative freedom to, how should I say, give it a shape that is not normal. All right, now here's the fun part. We're going to scribble. I'm looking at the piranha, and I love the teeth. I'm looking at the stag beetle, and that whole thorax area followed by the giant pincers. I think I'm going to have to go with adding a layer of thorax right here. So that could actually be the connector to the stomach. Okay, and then we're not going to copy the stag beetle directly. You got to have your own little creative freedom with this. So let's put the beginning of some pinchers. Okay, and let's put a really cool shape to it. Now, you're probably wondering, wait a minute, you're leaving the piranha out of this. Au contraire, I am not leaving the piranha out of this. As a matter of fact, instead of there just being pinchers, I'm going to have teeth on them. And they're going to look like the piranha teeth. All right. Now, at first, this sketch is rather cruddy, and it's supposed to be, because when you're a creature designer for games or movies or any kind of a concept artist, you got to get those rough sketches out first. So what I'm doing here is I'm just kind of playing with shapes, keeping my hand loose, and making sure that I'm drawing with my shoulder. So you have more controlled lines and looser lines if you draw with your shoulder. A lot of times we tend to draw with our elbow, and then that ends up having our sketches look like a banana. Like straight lines actually curve. It looks like a curvature of the earth. So once we have the pinchers here, I think what I'm going to do is play with some layers here. So what that means is if I put teeth in, they're going to go to the side. They're going to pinch inward. And I'm looking at this and I'm like, you know what? I actually don't like it. So this is the beauty of sketching rough first. I'm going to erase that whole head. I don't like it. I think it's ugly. I think I could do better than that. So a piranha, when you look at a piranha shape from the side, it has a really cool hunchback, or a rather short body, followed by a tail that kind of goes like that. But the mouth is the menacing part because it goes down and then the jaw protrudes past it so that the teeth look like this. And the teeth are actually curved inwards so that the prey inside of there can't escape it. And it just tears meat. So now that we have that idea in our head, let's look at the hunchback of this weird giraffe creature or whatever we're making. And let's start putting in a hunchback with a mouth of teeth that protrudes. But instead of just having a fish mouth, now we're going to put some pinchers on the side of the mouth. Now we don't want it to look too much like the xenomorph alien, all right? Because Alien is so ingrained in our minds just from people that grew up in the 80s and 90s and everything. We saw Alien, Alien 3, Alien's Resurrection, all the Alien flicks. We have that kind of tapered, clean, gross-looking, dark mouth shape with teeth coming out. So let's do something different with it. I'm going to look at the shape of where the pinchers can come out. And I'm going to have the pinchers come out like this and maybe curve upwards, like that. And then I'm going to round it off here. And then I'm going to play with the shape, and it's going to go out like this. That's the bottom jaw. Now, the cool thing about this is that I don't necessarily have to think about the skull underneath yet. What I can do is think about the functionality. Can the mouth actually close and open? And for the most part, yes, because if this whole front jaw closes down, all these teeth are exposed. Fine. It's just more for the prey to get trapped on. So I'm just going to give this a tapered jaw, and I'm going to go underneath here. And I'm going to follow the shape of the original giraffe belly. All right. Now, I don't necessarily want to give it a fishtail, and I don't necessarily want to just make it a round bottom. I do like some indication of a tail, so let's keep it reptilian. Because why not? It's our creature. Now notice how loose I'm keeping this still. So that means all of these lines are what we call thinking lines. They can be interpreted into different shapes once you start putting your details into the sketch. Speaking of details, this layer that I'm sketching on right now, so over here on the layer box, since I erased that, hold on, let me change the name real quick. Let me name it Sketch. This is going to be our under sketch, and then we're going to draw on top of it with a little bit more of a detail. All right, so you got to get out all these thinking lines first, because this will help guide where you want your legs, where you want your different bodily features. Okay, we definitely want it to walk. However, let's combine the stag beetle legs and the very muscular giraffe legs. Now, when you look at a beetle, the legs jut outwards. When you look at a quadruped like a giraffe, a wildebeest, a deer, or whatever, or an elk, it's quadruped, but the legs are going straight down because the center of gravity is different. Why don't we do a little bit of both? Let's protrude a shoulder out here, have it be really weird. And then we're going to taper the muscles and then have it jut outwards like this. Now, for balance purposes, there's a reason why beetles have 3 legs. There's a reason why spiders have 8. It matters like what leg is the pushing leg, what leg do you use to turn the body, and what leg do you use to pull the body forward. And it's all a matter of of evolution and how they turned. So wouldn't it be cool if we gave this thing 6 legs? So let's put a leg down here. It's really strange. It's kind of like a spider. That. All right. Add some thickness to it for some muscles. Because you don't want things to be too skinny. And that was something that I did early in my career where if I would design creatures, the body parts would almost be too flimsy, and it would look like they would break if they were in a fight with something bigger, or if it had to fight soldiers in some kind of a game. So the back leg here will be the third leg on the side. So we're going to keep a pretty thick thigh. Okay? And notice how I'm rounding off where the joints would be. This technique is good if you imagine this thing being a toy, or you're doing an orthographic view where if you're sending this off to the modeling department, you can take the legs off in a drawing and have it only be the side silhouette of the body. Because a lot of times when you send your sketches off to the 3D department, they don't really know what's going on underneath, like in the armpit area, the stomach, etc. This is good to draw. So let's have the back leg almost be like a mammal leg, but it's still going to have the joint of an insect. Okay, now we're getting a little weird. But if you look at this, the foot's going backwards. So let's shrink this drawing here a little bit because I don't like how there's no real pivot. There's no real strength to that leg. So let's have it come back like this, almost like a grasshopper. Okay, and then we have that. So now we can start playing with some shapes here. Maybe there's like some spikes on the back. Think about the feet. We don't want anything too complex, so maybe it's kind of like a 2-clawed foot. Maybe this is a 2-clawed foot in the middle, followed by a dew claw. And then the same thing in the back here. Maybe there's some like mammalian characteristics, but overall it's basically like an arachnid almost. Has some connecting skin tissue. And then just kind of indicate where the other leg is on the other side to give it more depth. All right, so here's the other cool part about designing creatures like this. We need to figure out where the eye is. Now, I want this thing to be pretty terrifying because it screams, hey, it's going to eat me. So a bigger, rounder black eye without any emotion is usually the scariest. So when you look at a shark and you look at a squid, it's not very pleasant to look at. It's kind of freaky. All right, so we have that. We're going to keep everything pretty loose in here. All right, so if we wanted to see this thing at another angle, maybe the mouth is like this, teeth coming out. So let me just sketch the mouth real quick. Pinchers are here, comes out, and then they have that weird hookup at the end of the pincher. There's the bottom jaw, the teeth, terrifying. There's the other side of the bottom jaw. Okay, there's the pincher coming out on the other side, and those two sides meet. Having these little sketches really help because it justifies what you're drawing. So you're not just making it up on the fly. You actually have some reference. That's why I'm keeping these photos here on the left. Okay, now you know what's going on. Okay, here's the fun part. We are going to turn this layer down in opacity to about 30. 28 is fine. All right, you guys ready? I know Lex is ready. Lex, if you're listening, your design's about to get a makeover here. All right, so now I'm going to make a new layer on top of that and call it Sketch 2. Sketch 2. All right. Those of you wondering, what brush am I using to sketch this with? If you have the current Photoshop, there is a set of brushes in, I'll show you. There's a set of brushes in dry media brushes called Kyle Ultimate Pencil Hard. It's a very good pencil brush because it has that nice chalky feel to it, and it still fades off at the end. That's what it looks like in large format. All right. So let's figure out what we actually want to do with this line work here. We're going to have at it. Turn the opacity down on the original layer just a little bit more because we don't want that to show up too much. All right. Now we can get kind of chaotic with these teeth. And believe it or not, I might actually change the brush. I might go to one that I've been using for a long time. It came from my old art director. It's just a hard round with some tapering at the end of it. It's a little bit smoother than the pencil brush. Since I'm refining the shape, I need it to be a little smoother. So what I'm doing now is I'm adding in some much needed clarity to these shapes. Okay, so maybe there's maybe a little bit more of shapes to the muscles where certain appendages come out. And this level of refinement is good if, when done with this layer, you can then start plugging color in if you wanted to color it. I'm a big advocate of mono or not monotone, but monochromatic. Because coloring, while beautiful and hard to do, um, it distracts you from your values. Now, if you get good at drawing with a pencil and drawing in grayscale, it takes care of your knowledge of learning values so that your color actually looks way better when you just colorize your value drawing. I'm going to add some shapes in here on that pincher, because now that I'm putting detail on it, I actually don't like that shape. There wasn't really much to it. There we go. I'm only indicating some shading here, like that. Starting to think about the neck area because it didn't really have a neck before. And once you're done with something like this, you went over from head to toe, you start to put in some indications of muscle. You can turn this layer's opacity down and then do a really tight, nice line drawing sketch for it, and then apply flat color or whatever and render it. It's fine. Or photo bash, whatever you want to do. For speed purposes, I mean, photo bashing, you can't beat it. Even if you're a super fast painter with regular brushes, photo bashing already has the textures in there for you. So what I'm doing now is putting in a little bit more shape and detail to the shoulder area. I want to start thinking about the anatomy. So this is the rib cage followed by the extra arm coming out of it. Start thinking about, like, how do those muscles actually work growing out of the ribs. And the cool thing is, if you just indicate where the rib cage is, followed by the deltoid muscle and some skin folding and some substance in between all those little ridges, it gives the illusion like there's a lot of muscles compacted in that area growing through the ribs that would allow a shoulder to be there. A lot of times when people draw 6, 7, 8-legged creatures, they don't really think about how the muscles look close together, especially shoulders. Prime example, pretty much all of the Avatar creatures on Pandora have 6 legs. Like the horse-like creatures, just everything, like the Thanator, the giant mean black-looking cat, same thing. So what I'm going to do now is kind of hatch in some indication of muscles in the arm. This. Okay, and then since I want to keep it arachnid, I'm going to not really put a lot of muscle definition as you get close to the feet, because there's never a lot of muscles down here, especially if you look at dogs, if you look at large cats. Once it gets down to the feet, all of them are in the shoulders, and since this thing needs to be strong enough to push its hulking body along, it's going to have some pretty big delts. All right, and we can even play around with this too. We can take, instead of just drawing another arm on the other side, just do this. Copy this one. Okay, we got a second arm here. Shrink it just a little bit to show depth. Turn it. Move it up. Like that. Turn the opacity down on that. Right, like that. Okay, and then erase where it overlapped your original arm. Okay, and then combine those 2 layers over here. So what I did was I went to layer 6, which is the lighter arm on the other side, followed by sketch 2, which is the newer sketch layer. And I just hit Control E on a PC, and that combines that layer like that. So you always want to be controlling it. Now, if you're on a Mac, it's usually Apple's E, I believe. One thing I want to change is the shape of those fingers right here, because usually when you walk, especially if you're a dog or whatever, those are usually bent. So I want to show that there's some motion, right, like that, and then I'll just hatch in some shadow, right, like that. Okay, so now let's go back to regular opacity to 100. Oh, first of all, dark gray. Okay, now I'm going to darken up the bottom of the creature. So why am I doing that? It's indicating where shadow would exist without having to spend too much time shading in actual shadow. All right. So all I'm doing is just hatching in some scribbles so that when you zoom out, that still looks pretty good and it shows up. And then you want to do that for the rest of the animal. This. Okay, so now I'm tightening up the lines just a little bit. And that was a happy accident. I didn't mean to make that thicker there, but I kind of like how that looks. Big claws at the end. Make sure that I put the flesh around the claws to show the skin, the dew claw right here. And you're getting to the point where this is starting to look really cool. Now, here's the thing. Now that I'm looking at this creature, I don't really know if I like the extra set of legs, because this is one of those things where as the design goes on, it doesn't really feel right to have that extra leg there based on how it's moving. I'm just going to keep the giraffe belly. That's exactly how it looks in the photo. So let's do that instead. All right, got that. But one thing I will do is I'm going to still play up with the shapes of the beetle. Now the beetle has larger eyes. So I'm going to do that. Very scary looking. And I'm going to take the head, oops, like this, and then I'm just going to move it forward. And then I'm going to add sections in just like the insect. Okay, so section it off like this, and then we'll have one in the middle here. Man, this is looking very, very strange, but fun at the same time. There we go. I'm also going to darken the tip of the pinchers because it just makes it a tad more menacing. There we go. Now, there's nothing on the backs of these creatures except for the piranha has a little bit of extra fin, I believe, on the side right there. But it's also cool just to have that in general. So you wouldn't think this thing to have a fin. Like that. Okay, and then what are some other features that this piranha has that we could do? Okay, so I like the nose. It comes out and then it comes down like that, and it has the nose, the nostril hole right there. So it's kind of menacing and terrifying looking. I really like that. All right, now we're getting somewhere. Now it's looking pretty cool. And to top this off, what if we had almost a beetle shape in the back? Okay, and then you had an exoskeleton that follows the shape of those legs. Now, that looks pretty cool. So what I'm doing now is I'm combining the shapes by darker lines to show the separation of the skin and the exoskeleton. Okay, we're going to flip the canvas just to see what that looks like. I'm going to draw in the other leg. Okay, and then let's give the claws a darker treatment so they can show up. Okay, same thing with the back here with the dew claw, followed by the toenails. All right, so let's jump back out. Man, that thing's pretty freaky. Still not convinced on the eye. So I'm going to erase the eye again. And the piranha eye, if you notice, does have some shape to it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it look a little bit meaner. Right like that. And put in some really cool fish mouth facial shapes here. I'm going to put a tiny little iris. That's pretty scary. There we go. Okay, I'm going to zoom out. Yeah, that's pretty freaky. I wouldn't even know what to name that thing. Um, so when you're drawing something like this, even at this level, it is still loose. Now, as I make more videos like these, I'm going to go into more depth, have an actual painting where it could probably take an hour, hour and a half to fully render it out. Uh, if you like something like that, if you want to see that, please comment in the comment section below, because I'd love to hear it. And also, uh, if you like today's subject matter and you have an idea of 3 animals that you want me to combine, shoot it in the comments so we can all read it. If we get enough of them, I'll probably make a poll so everybody can vote. I think that would be a lot of fun. So the more community participation, the funner it could be. Because I know that a lot of you out there are going to have some pretty wacky ideas. Like last week, it was a dragonfly, a kangaroo. I can't remember. Just a lot of weird things. So put in some little details there. You could add color to this, but it's not necessary. I will say though that if you wanted to put more details in and spend a lot more time on it, the face is the place to do it because that's where all the personality of the creature comes out. Okay, so let's zoom out a little bit. Yeah, that's pretty cool. So that's a giraffe, a stag beetle, and a piranha. And you know what? I don't have a name for this thing yet. Comment below, tell me what we should name it. And then I might just rename the title of the actual video to that name. So be kind of cool. But anyway, if you like this one, just click on this video, check out last week's, and hopefully you liked it, folks. So thanks for stopping by. I can't wait to do next week.